Oh, hello, everybody. Welcome to Bayou Bets. Today is Thursday. I think it's Thursday. It's been crazy. February 22nd, 2024. We're happy that you joined us here. We have a lot of things to talk about. I'm Jim Derriam along with Thomas Casale. What is going on this afternoon?
Not too much. Just, it's getting almost March, Jim. It's my time of year. March
It is your
Madness.
time. Yeah, it is your time of year. By the way, for all that aren't paying attention, go follow at the Tom Casale because this dude is rolling this year. His record is what is it, like 82-32 or something?
Yeah. 82
Again,
and 32 in college basketball.
and by the way, that's against the spread. That's not just saying, okay, I think Purdue's going to win tonight. Well, duh. That's 82-32 against the spread. So everybody check out at the Tom Casale on X, and you will be glad that you did. I wish I would have been paying more attention earlier, or maybe I'd have a little bit more money. Look, we have a lot of things going on today. We have some announcements to talk about. We're going to save most of the announcement for the end of the show. I know people are wondering, seeing finale and wondering what's going on. None of us are going anywhere. We're all still going to be here at Bayou Bets at bet.nola.com, but we're just changing the way we do things a little bit, and we're going to tell you how that's going to work later. You see at the bottom, we ask you to subscribe to the Bayou Bets and Datitude YouTube channels. That's because Bayou Bets is kind of merging into Datitude, so to speak. Again, we're going to get into that towards the end, but we definitely want to thank everyone who's been with us throughout the last 2.5 years. Again, we're not going anywhere. We're just changing some things and how we're doing it. And Mr. Horace, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, my dad passed away a couple of weeks ago. The services are this weekend, and thank you from Mr. Horace and everyone out there. I've gotten a lot of nice comments from friends, family, and actually I got quite a few comments from people I don't even know, and it's been very nice and soothing, and I appreciate them all. So let's get back to sports, and Tom, we're going to start off this afternoon and talking about LSU men's basketball. And I think, look, anyone who watched this game last night, insane. I mean, LSU came back from a 17-point deficit this past Saturday to beat South Carolina, and then last night kind of faded towards the end of the second half, gave up a 12-1 run. Looked like they had no shot, but they came out in the second half. They played with fire. They played with emotion, and they were just really good last night. And I want to know where this team's been all year.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. As I said in the production meeting, even in a couple of their losses recently, they've played a lot better. I think the coaching's been pretty good for LSU this year. They weren't expected to compete at all. They're getting better at the end of the year. That's kind of what you wanted to see this season out of LSU. Nobody thought they were going to go and compete for the SEC. I mean, if it happened, great. But I think if they can close strong here, they can make things interesting. A lot of things have to go their way. If you remember, a couple of years ago, Texas A&M closed fast at the end of the year, and they made the championship game of the SEC, and they still didn't get in. So they need a couple teams in the SEC to falter as well, and they have to close strong to kind of get in that conversation. But I think this bodes. I mean, LSU, I'm always looking ahead. LSU is a team that I'm going to be interested to see what kind of offseason they have, because I think they're headed in the right direction.
And I think they have the right coach there to do it. But you see some of the numbers on the screen. A couple of these odds are from team rankings. If you go to team rankings, they'll tell you what their chances are to make the tournament. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. We had a pre-production meeting. Gabe Henderson was shaking his head. No, not going to make it. You never know. Strange things have happened. But basically, Tom, LSU they certainly would need to win their last 5 games of the regular season, get to 19-12. Then if they won 2 games in the SEC tournament, maybe. So you're talking about 7 wins in a row. Team rankings gives them a 0.5% chance to make the tournament and a 0.1% chance to gain an at-large bid. So they think they need to do more than just win 2 games, win the rest, and get to the tournament. Or maybe that is the odds of them doing what I just said they need to do.
Yeah, listen, strength of schedule is strong. Ken Palm's got him at 32. The problem for LSU, the number I like to look at this stuff is net. They're 85th in net, and they're around teams like UMass and South Florida, teams that wouldn't get an at-large bid.
Right.
So that would have to increase a lot over this next week or so. And again, I think it's unlikely, but I will say this. I think they're in good shape to make the NIT. And I would say coming out of the SEC, if they finish strong, I know a lot of people don't bet the NIT, but there's some value there. I think LSU would be an interesting team to win the NIT.
And I'll say this, most teams, you make the NIT, it's like a consolation booby prize and you're upset about it. I guarantee you this LSU team would be happy to make the NIT, which you're always looking for teams in the NIT, like you talk about with value. You're always looking for teams that want to be there. Those are the ones that usually make the most noise, and LSU would definitely be a team that would want to be there. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because they easily could go 3-3, 3-2, or 2-3 down the final stretch, and then bow out of the SEC tournament early. And I don't think 17-15 would even get them in the NIT. We'll have to wait and see. And if you also see their RPI ranking right now, Tom, is 108. That's definitely not good enough to make the NIT.
No. And so they still have work to do, but we'll see. We'll see. They got a really big game on Saturday against Mississippi State.
Right.
I would have liked them more if they lost to Kentucky. Having beaten Kentucky, now having a game on Saturday, that kind of takes me off them a little bit, but we'll see. I mean, Mississippi State's average on the road. If LSU plays well, they got a shot in that game.
There's no doubt about it. And you look at the schedule that we have on the screen here, and, Mississippi State, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Mizzou, none of those teams really scare you. I mean, there's no reason. They'll certainly have a chance to win those 5 games.
Yeah, they have a chance to win every game that's left. They don't have an Alabama. They don't have Tennessee. So they all those games left. And I will say this. Out of those 5, Ken Pompard always predicts the spreads of the games and gives wins, losses. They got them going 4-1 with a close loss this Saturday at Mississippi State. So the analytics people don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they win all these games.
And for you baseball enthusiasts out there, number 2, LSU playing Northern Illinois this afternoon at the Boxes to begin a 4-game set. They are flip-flopping between teams. I can't remember who the other team they play tomorrow, but they are winning 9-2 in the bottom of the 6th inning. So we'll try to keep you up to date as we go along there. Also, if you want to make a comment, got a comment or a question, feel free to leave it in either YouTube, Facebook, or X, and we'll be glad to show it on the screen. Okay, we're going to move on because I want to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans as their All-Star break ends tonight. They get back into action against the Houston Rockets. They are 33-22. Technically, they're in 6th, although they're tied with the Phoenix Suns for 5th. Can they keep this roll going? Tom, if they're going to make a move, you look at this schedule, and I think they got to do it now because this is very favorable for them. Obviously, the Pacers are played better than most people thought they would. The Knicks are going to be a playoff team, but really, there's no reason to think they can't go 4-2, 5-1 in this stretch coming up.
Yeah, and we talked about this before on the show. I think they're going to be an interesting team in the playoffs. I like to bet series in the playoffs, and the Pelicans are definitely on my radar for that. So I think they got to stay healthy. They got to make a move here. Being in that 4-5 slot, if they can get there, I think is where they're trying to get. And if they're there, I think they become a dangerous team.
What do you think? What do they need to do to take that next step? To me, it seems like what they've done this year is they make a little bit of a run and then they just kind of fall apart for a week or so. How do you change those sorts of things in basketball? It's not easier said than done because especially in the NBA, it's such a grind.
Yeah, and when you said the first thing I was going to say is just be more consistent, right? They run hot, they run cold. They got to eliminate those longer losing streaks in the NBA. And in the NBA, you got your back-to-backs at nights, and you got back on the road, and there's things like that you have guys who take rest, but they got to avoid those those clunker weeks that they have sometimes. And, I just think that's more mental. That's more of a mindset. Right. It's, you can't let games listen, everyone's going to get upset. It's pro sports, but you can't let 2 or 3 games that you should win slip away. And those games are the difference between the 4-5 and playing in the 6 slot where you got to play the number 3 seed in the West. And
I think there is actually some value on this board if you look at it. Now, look, I know you might think it's silly to bet NBA title at plus 6,500, but that number's actually gone back up. That number had gone from 7,000 to 6,500 down to 6,000. And I guess it was the Lakers loss that made it go back to 65. But I think there's value there right now. You're talking about a team that really could end up as like a 3 seed potentially, maybe even as high as a 2 seed. They're only 6 games out of the number 1 seed right now. And their over-under win total is what I really like, Thomas, because at 48.5, that says to me they got to go 16-11 down the stretch to finish, I believe, to finish over the win total there. And I think 16-11 with the schedule that they have is very, very doable. I actually like that number.
Yeah, I was looking at that myself when you pop these up here. The 48.5, I think, intrigues me. And, you mentioned the 65. I think, to me, the West is wide open.
100%.
You have Minnesota as the 1 seed. So the 22-1 to win the West. If you win the West, the West, I think, is better top to bottom.
Right.
But the East has those couple of power teams that you would most likely have to face in the finals, where I think the West playoffs is going to be crazy. So I wouldn't be shocked
a little bit.
Right. And I wouldn't be shocked if a team like New Orleans makes a run. And remember, Jim, we talk about this all the time. I'll say hey, I got 100-1 on Iowa State to win it all. People say, they're not going to win it all. They don't have to win it all. If you get 100-1, you don't have to win it all. You can still lock in money. So if you take a team like the Pelicans to get to the West Finals at 22-1 or to win the NBA title at 65-1, you're going to have chances to lock in money.
Yeah, you start hedging at some point, hedging against what you already have, the equity that you have in that ticket, and 100%. I agree 100%, because if the Pelicans can just once they get to the semifinals, you're on gravy then. I mean, because you are hedging against, hedging that you're going to win some money. And if the Pelicans end up doing it and you're holding that ticket, you're going to win big money on that. But again, just thinking more realistic terms, I really like this over-under win total, 48.5. I think this is only going to go up, especially if they start off the post-break stretch here like I think they're going to. I really like them tonight against the Rockets, a 7-point favorites. Little trend I had in the newsletter this morning, Tom. The Pelicans, the last 10 victories against the Rockets, all 10 of them have been by 7 or more, and 9 of them have been by more than 7. So if you think the Pelicans are going to win, you might as well just lay the 7, because there's a good chance, at least trend-wise, they're going to win big.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think the 48.5 here is the best play on the board. I think they get to 50 wins this year.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about Saints before we end the show with some college football playoff talk. Interesting controversy. We were talking about a lot on Paul Feinbaum yesterday. We're going to talk about the potential expanded playoffs in college football. But first, and also we're going to make our announcement on why this is the finale of Bayou Bets. That's coming up as well, But got to touch on the Saints for just a minute, and it's never too early to start talking about the NFL draft. I know we're going to really be focusing a lot on this, on Datitude coming up over the course of the next few weeks. Hard to believe, but, as that calendar rolls over, it comes before you know it. It's only 2 months away before we're at the NFL draft in Detroit this year, April 25th through 27th. So I guarantee you the Saints, now that they have finally rounded out their offensive coaching staff, are certainly thinking about the draft now.
Oh, yeah. Yep. It's, we mentioned this earlier today. We're kind of in that couple of weeks where there's not much going on with the NFL, which doesn't happen often. But soon, we have March Madness coming up. We also got NFL free agency, and then you got the draft. So we take a little bit of break after the Super Bowl, then we ramp it back up. And the one thing, Jim, I just thought was interesting, and listen, it's just how odds makers perceive teams, but the Saints are 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. There's only a few teams with longer odds. They have the third. There's 2 teams ahead of them in their own division, the Falcons and the Bucks, who have shorter odds. So I thought last year the odds makers were high on the Saints. When you saw those numbers go more overly optimistic. Now, interestingly, they've gone the other way on the Saints so far on the early numbers. So I'll be interested to see where they go.
I also am going to be interested to see where they put this over-under win total, because if you're telling me right now you think they're 80-1, that's showing me that they think their over-under is going to be somewhere around 7.5.
Yeah.
And I hate that I'm going to be positive here after what they've done to me the last 2 years with these over-under totals. But if you look at the schedule, as tough as it seems on the exterior, because it's tougher than last year, anything would be tougher than last year. to me, if they just do anything on offense, like I think 8 wins might be the floor for this team because their division's so bad.
It is. It's. I will say, and again, it's the NFL. Things change from year to year, but just on paper, this isn't the easiest schedule in the world. I mean, you draw the Rams, you draw the Browns, you draw the Eagles, you got the Cowboys, you get the AFC West there. They'll have to play better than they did this year to manage this schedule.
It's gonna be exciting when Sean Payton comes to town. I'm just saying, and he's on the other
Yep.
side. That's got to be a Sunday night game. There's no way they're not going to make that a Sunday night game. I'm waiting to see. I would think that would be early in the season too, that they probably want to get it out of the way. But look, 80-1. I don't know. We got a long way to go because I want to see what they do in the draft. I'm not just jumping in like I did. Certainly 2 years. The fact that they didn't hit that number, that they had 7.5 2 years ago, that was insane that they didn't make it over 7.5, and then. Last year was 9.5. I think most normal pessimistic people, which is not me, but I have a lot of friends who are they're pessimistic. No way they're going to win 9.5. I told them I thought they would, and the pessimistic people were right this time. So who knows? And it's going to be a little tougher this year because I do think, again, we talk about 80-1. That signals to me they're going to be somewhere around 7.5. It's going to be their over/under win total. Maybe even less than that. Maybe more like 6.5 or 7. That's going to be very interesting as we go forward.
Yeah, I'm going to be. I was thinking 7.5 too. We'll see how it goes, but
if they're lower than 7.5, I hate to say this, I'm probably going to jump on the over, and somebody will have to call me just stupid when the season's over. Like, how many times do you need to just throw your money away? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out later, but I'll probably do it. All right, let's move on as we close out the show this afternoon. Want to bring in our friends here at Bayou Bets, Gabe Henderson, Spencer the Guru, because before we make our announcement, we do want to talk about the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams next year. Everyone knows that. But I was I was taken aback, I guess. I didn't know that they were talking about making it 14 teams already and maybe even 16 in the near future. So where is this coming from? But I'd like to get your take because I certainly have my own. I'm going to start. We're going to go from right to left. Spencer, what is your take on the college football playoffs expanding again already? Just goes to show that if they should have just done this a few years ago, like many years ago, it's all about money. Well, they're finding out how much money they can make with these playoffs, I think.
Oh, yeah, most definitely, which is why I feel like it's the more the merrier as far as the more you let in, the more money you're going to make. I mean, look at pro sports. The NBA has a huge playoff field. MLB keeps expanding their playoffs. NFL expanded to 14 teams a few years ago. So, yeah, this doesn't surprise me one bit. I think they'll probably go with 12 for the first year or two, but I think they'll definitely get it to 14 pretty soon, not long after. And then the 16, I think, will be within 5 years. I think it'll probably be 12, then a year or two, 14, and a couple of years after that, 16. But the way they like to rush things, it might be even sooner than I'm thinking. I'm just trying to think logically with it because of the way they've probably already got agreements with different bowls and stadiums and such. But they're going to try to get as many teams in there as possible. Well, 10 years from now, it's probably 24 teams.
You just don't stop at 12, I can tell you that. That's not a number you stop at. So I'd be surprised if they don't get to 16 in the near future, at least 16. And who knows, maybe 32 someday. Gabe, I got a feeling you don't like this 14-team thing.
You see those jerseys behind Thomas?
Yeah.
Why don't we just expand the damn thing to 64 teams now?
I don't have a problem with it.
Where are we going to stop, really, guys? I mean, come on. I'm okay with 12. If you want to do 12, that's fine. Especially, you get me with the semifinals being played on campus. Or the quarterfinals. That's a lot of fun if you get playoff games on campus. I get a special feeling inside of me when I think about, Saturday night in Death Valley with playoff, with a semifinal spot on the line. But once you start talking about 14, 16, come on. We're awarding a majority of the damn top 25. It's ridiculous at this point.
Tom, I think you and I both agree there is no better spectacle in sports than the NCAA tournament. I'm not a huge basketball guy, but I tell you what, I soak up as much as I can of the NCAA tournament. It doesn't matter how much or how little I've watched, and I don't understand why people are getting so upset about potentially more teams in football, because I think in the long run, I think it could lead to more, I guess, equity among teams, because right now we don't have any, and I think by expanding it could really help that.
Yeah, I got a couple of things. One, there's only one thing I know of in this country that unites people, and that's March Madness. There's not one person on earth who comes to you and says, they should really change March Madness. They should add more teams. Well, guess what? They're going to change March Madness. They're going to add more teams. That's the world we're living in today. It's all about the money. You know, I know people want to say, well, the regular season. Listen, when I grew up, the two biggest games were Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Michigan and Notre Dame. They haven't played for years. The college football as we know it is done. And that all started with the conference realignment. So the playoffs have nothing to do with it. People are still going to watch the regular season games. The ratings are still going to be big. And then there's going to be, more games, which I'm always in favor of. The only thing I've always debated, I don't care what number they land on. 4 was a joke, and here's why. I want the teams that can win a national championship to be able to play for a national championship. Ohio State and Georgia not being able to play for anything this year is ridiculous, right? I don't care. Like, I understand 16 teams, half of those teams probably aren't going to win the national championship, but at least we get the 8 in there that have a shot, and they can decide it on the field. And to be honest, for our business, I say the more games, the better. Anytime you want to add more football games, that's better for us.
I just don't understand why people are so against it. So what if they expand to 32 and 32 gets annihilated by 1? So what? There's going to be a time when 32 is like got 1 in the fourth quarter biting their fingernails. Is it going to happen? It's going to be like it is in basketball. I mean, I don't understand why people get so upset about adding more teams. To me, the playoffs are supposed to be about playoffs. I grew up in a time when sports writers decided who the national championship was. That's just asinine. And so then we came up with this BCS, which was BS championship, and that was no good. And now we got 4. That's not good. So, yeah, maybe 12 is a good number. Maybe 8 would have been a better number if you just want to talk about realistic teams that have a chance to win the national championship. But this isn't about teams that win the national championship. I mean, there are plenty of years when we go in the NFL. Did anyone think Tampa Bay had a realistic chance of winning the Super Bowl this year? No. Did they deserve to make the playoffs? Absolutely they did. So to me, you do get rewarded for making a playoffs if you earn that spot. And I don't understand what's wrong with 16 or even 32 teams. I think 16 is fine, but if they ever go to 32, I'm not going to have a problem with that either. It certainly beats old man with a cigarette just telling me who the national championship is. I'm going to tell you that right now. So.
Yeah, and I also think it's good in that if you expand it to that number, then every conference champion's guaranteed a spot. That way, the Sun Belt or the AAC or who have Mountain West, they can't complain. Like, we got left out and we had a 1-loss team. It's like, if you have that many teams, then make sure every conference has a spot reserved for their conference champion.
Well, I mean,
yeah, and Jim, what you're saying is
Gabe's
true.
Still upset. Gabe's still upset because he had to wear that L on his face following the 62-7. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I'm upset because, I mean, what you said earlier, and, to Thomas's point, he said he wants every team who can win a title to get a shot. I can't tell you any year of my lifetime. I've been alive since 1998. There hasn't been a single year of my life where 16 teams could have potentially won a national title. I mean, let's just be honest. And as far as Spencer's point goes, sure. Conference champions, congrats on winning your conference, but if you get a 3-loss Sun Belt champion, I want no part of watching them on my television.
Oh, but you still will.
Other than in the Bahamas Bowl.
You'll still watch.
But the thing is, Gabe, those teams aren't going to win the national championship. What Jim's talking about is one of the most famous college football games ever played is Boise State and Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
And that was so let's say Hawaii wins their conference and one day they go in and they beat a Georgia. That's kind of what I think we're looking at is those. You're right. There's only every year at most there's 8. At most, there's 8 teams that could win it all. But I think you're looking at adding more intrigue because let's be honest, out of all the sports, college football has had the worst postseason every year of my life. It's actually more exciting at the beginning of the year than it is towards the end because you only got 1 or 2 teams playing for something.
Right.
So I think it's more of just adding that suspense that you get I don't go to bars much anymore, but I was there for my buddy's birthday the night UMBC beat Virginia. 16 beat a 1.
Yep.
I mean, the place was going insane. I mean, nobody had money on the game. Nobody had them in their brackets. But the fact that they were going to take down a number 1 seed, I think football is trying to get some of that into their sport as well.
Because nobody.
Well, let me ask you guys this, though. So we're going to eventually, no matter how many teams we have, there's always going to be someone who feels like they got screwed. What are we going to do when we give automatic bids to the Sun Belt champion, who's got 3 losses, and a 2-loss SEC team gets left out and they feel shafted?
A 2-loss SEC team would never get left out in a 32-team
tournament. And nobody gets screwed.
Ever.
Listen, there isn't a team that's ever gotten screwed in the NCAA tournament. There's 60-plus teams. Listen, that the bubble talk.
Well, I mean, A&M felt screwed a few years ago.
The who?
The A&M felt screwed a few years ago, although I agree.
They did, but but they had 13. I mean,
yeah.
I'm just saying, like, Georgia's never going to get left out, right? Ohio State's never. The teams that can win, Notre Dame wins enough games, they're going in, and so I just think that this is what I would say. I always I like the debate and everything. Give it a couple years and see what everybody thinks. I just think after a couple years, I don't think many people will be complaining about the process.
And I promise you, Gabe, no matter what you think, I promise you that next year at 12, and then if they do to go to 14 or 16, will be much better. And I keep bringing this up because it was a farce. It was a GD joke that when we grew up that we didn't get to see a playoff or a national championship game. It was absurd. I mean, it really was. And I mean, we had split national champions one year, or a couple of years actually. People laying claim to the national championship. Give me a break. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. If you got 16 teams in there, and like I said, if it's 16, if it's Liberty versus Georgia, nobody on this panel can tell me they're not going to be watching, because you're a liar if you tell me that.
Here's the thing, though. Here's what I'll leave it off with. When do you stop?
You stop when you think that you're not going to make money.
Because we started with 2, then we went to 4, and then everyone was talking about 6 to 8. I personally think 6 to 8 is probably the perfect number. I'm okay with 12, but once we start getting into 14, 16, I mean, people are just going to keep asking for more. So when do we stop?
Well, to answer your question, if it were up to me, and it was solely up to me, and you can be college football king for a day, I'd make it 32. That's what I'd do. I'd have fun with it. I'd make it 32. 32 beats 2, beats 4. Because 4 sucks. 4, you might as well go back to the old dudes chomping cigars and cigarettes and whatever, making a decision, because I don't think that's fair at all. I mean, to me, Georgia being left out of the thing this year was absurd. Go ahead.
Right. I like 24. I feel like that's a good amount, because then those top 8 can have buys, and then the 9 through 24 can duke it out. So that'd be what I would go with. But they're probably going to end up at 32. Like I said, 10 years from now, I bet it's going to be 32.
I think there's a good chance that 10 years from now it's 32, but I think for now you're safe, Gabe.
And Gabe, you asked when it's going to stop. It'll stop when people don't watch anymore, and I'll point this out. In a couple weeks, spring games will be aired. Yeah. The Alabama, Georgia, and LSU spring games will destroy NBA games in TV ratings. Those are spring games. Those are scrimmages. So that's really, just speaking honest, like whatever we think the number's going to be, it's really whenever people don't want to watch anymore, because as long as they can keep making money off this now, and again, I'm with Jim. I don't know why this didn't happen 15 years ago. I think all those guys who had jobs doing bowls were against it. But when they can't make any more money, that's when it'll stop. Because again, nobody on earth thinks there's anything wrong with the NCAA tournament, and they're going to expand that by 20 teams soon.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly.
Or when they have to start paying players for all those extra games, that's when they might stop as well.
Pay them. I don't have a problem with paying players.
No, neither do I.
That's a whole different show.
People with the money do.
Maybe we'll talk about it on Datitude someday. All right, let's get to the announcement and the closing. We've kind of alluded to it here. Today's been a weird day. It's been frankly, it's been kind of a surreal couple of weeks for me. Just all kinds of things that can happen. And this morning, Tom and Robert Young told me this morning that we're going to change things up a little bit, and we're going to make Datitude a regular thing. For those of you who watch both Bayou Bets and the Datitude podcast, we thank you. If you've only been watching Bayou Bets and you're a regular here at Bayou Bets, we ask you to jump over and check out Datitude. But season 4 begins next Friday, a week from tomorrow, on March the 1st. And it's going to be a little bit different this time because I'm kind of jumping out of my role here at bet.nola.com, and I'm going to become a full-time podcast host, which is even weird to say as I sit here and tell you this. I didn't know that there was such a thing. People host radio shows. It's been a dream of mine to be a broadcaster. I've been a sports writer for 33 years. We'll see what happens after I'm not writing for a little while. If I start getting crazy itches and beg Tom to let me write something, we'll see how it goes. But we're going to turn Bayou Bets into Datitude. We're going to kind of merge the shows, and Datitude is going to be a much more regular presence here, not just on Bayou Bets, but also on all of our NOLA.com sports social media channels. We're going to turn the Bayou Bets YouTube channel is going to become Datitude. Datitude's going to become, with a little help from Gabe, it's going to become its own X channel. Datitude also is going to take over the Bayou Bets Instagram channel and on TikTok as well. All these guys are going to be on with me at different points. The show's going to evolve, and we're going to figure out where we're going to go, but it's going to focus probably just as Datitude is now. It's probably going to be about 70% Saints. In the fall, it's probably going to be 80% Saints, and maybe a little bit more. We're going to talk about LSU. We're going to talk about Pelicans. We're going to have our Best Bet show. Spencer's going to come on with me at least once a week, and we're going to do a fantasy show on Datitude. But everything that we do on Bayou Bets is going to be rolled into Datitude. And again, Datitude is going to expand, and it's going to be my full-time job. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. Change is always scary, and it certainly is in this case. But I just want to thank all you guys. We're a team here. We work the way that we work. Sometimes we work, I don't know, it's crazy. Sometimes we work 7 days a week, and it is what it is. And other days we get little breaks here and there. But it's been a crazy 2.5 years. Spencer, you and I have basically been together for the whole thing. Gabe, you came on a little over a year ago, and Tom, you came on in the fall, right when when we were sticking our feet in the fire. And it's just been, since we started this 2.5 years ago, it's been kind of nonstop. And I guess it's going to continue that way. Tom, I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, no problem. And I'm really looking forward to it. We decided, I decided that Jim was the best person to lead our video and our podcasting, and he's got the brand with Datitude. So we're looking forward to, instead of having 2 different shows, rolling it all into one and have Jim spearheading everything. So I'm super excited.
Well, again, we thank you. And if you see there at the bottom, again, I didn't know how to do that today. Subscribe. It's still the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. If you go on there, it will change to Datitude at some point in the near future. And again, how this will start, we'll figure it out as we go along. March 1st will be the first episode of season 4, which will be the 209th episode, by the way, of Datitude as a whole. So it's not like we're just starting this. 209th episode of Datitude coming up. And again, it will become in the spring and the summer, it'll be anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week. And then, except, the draft, we might do 5 shows in a week. We're going to do more shorts on YouTube, more things on TikTok. Spencer's going to still do some things on TikTok like we've been doing. None of that part's going to change, but it's just going to be merged into one show, and we're looking forward to it. We hope you come along for the ride, and I want to thank all my guys on the screen here. For Thomas Casale, for Gabe Henderson, for Spencer the Guru, I'm Jim Derry. We'll see you next week on Datitude. Thank you for watching Bayou Bets. We'll see you soon.